I guess they want you to identify yourself too, please.
Oh, my name's Todd Smith. Thank you for your words today. Really inspiring. When you're elected president, what type of qualities would you look for in judicial nominees, Supreme Court nominees, and does Judge Garland fit those criteria?
Great question. Let me say in general that I want to do everything I can, assuming I'm fortunate enough to get the Democratic nomination, while I wage the campaign against whoever the Republicans nominate, to really begin working on a number of key issues, and one of them is collecting a list of people to be nominated for judgeships, because we have a lot of vacancies, and we know that there will be maybe a very short honeymoon, but at least a honeymoon, I hope. And we will move quickly to try to get appointments for district, circuit, judgeships up before the Senate, and then work hard to get them to consider them. It will help enormously if we take back the Senate, starting with you returning Russ Feingold to the Senate. And I'm not going to second guess the president's choice. I think part of the reason, besides the fact that he is an extraordinary judge, that the president chose him, is because Republicans are on record praising him and talking about what a judicious decider he is. And I think that it really does put greater pressure on the Republican Senate and on senators like Senator Hatch, who have been quite public before in praising Judge Garland. What I want to look for is not only qualifications, that goes without saying, but I would really like to find appointments where people have not just been on one narrow track, out of law school to a clerkship, out of clerkship to a firm, maybe to a U.S. Attorney's office, and then to a firm, maybe into the Justice Department, and then back to a firm. And, it's a pretty clear pathway. And part of the reason it is because it's a safe pathway. It's safe for somebody who wants to be on the court, and it's safe for a president who can say, okay, everybody knows what this path looks like, so I'm not deviating by pointing someone from it. But we lose the broader human experience that I think comes from looking for people who haven't been on that path. Maybe they have some political experience. Maybe they have, more of a public defender experience. Maybe they have a different set of life experiences. When I was in the Senate and I interviewed both Justice Roberts and Justice Alito, highly qualified by the path that we are talking about, but people who'd had, in my view, a very circumscribed life experience. And one of the reasons why I'm a fan of Sonia Sotomayor is because she has a very different life experience. Yes, she got on the track, but she did so after growing up in a housing project, after having to take care of herself from the age of 9 because of her juvenile diabetes, and a lot of other life experiences which gave her an empathy. Part of what's going on in the country right now is we are really knocking down a lot of legal barriers to discrimination, thankfully. We're kind of coming around the back and trying to reinstate them in ways that are quite troubling, but legally they're being knocked down. We can get along with people from many different perspectives and the like, but when it comes to political differences, we really are having a hard time talking across the divide. And I think part of that is because of life experiences. If you don't think people understand the life you've led, if you don't think people really get it, what it's like, pick one, be a single mom trying to support yourself and kids on a minimum wage job, be a union worker who is watching your governor and state legislature do everything possible to diminish the importance of your union. You can go down the list. Then we get an increasingly constricted view from people who we give these very powerful jobs to. So clearly there are certain, I would not appoint someone who didn't think Roe v. Wade was settled law. I would not appoint someone who wasn't disturbed by and looking for a chance to overturn Citizens United, because I believe they were wrongly decided. And I'll give you a case that I'm very familiar with, because I was in the Senate when we voted to reauthorize the Voting Rights Act. We voted 98 to nothing. It was totally bipartisan. We'd had lots of hearings, tens of thousands of pages of testimony. The Republicans agreed with the Democrats we needed to reauthorize the Voting Rights Act as it stood. George W. Bush signed it. And then the right began their legal campaign against it and persuaded the court that Section 5, which was the heart of the Voting Rights Act, could essentially be disabled. Now, what happened? States have rushed, including this state, not just states in the South, but other states have rushed to make it harder for people to vote. All kinds of ID requirements, trying to eliminate whole classes of people. North Carolina passed a voting restriction law which said that if a student voted where he or she went to school, his or her parent would lose their exemption for that child. Now, this is meant to restrict the electorate, as many people as you can eliminate who you don't think will vote for you. My favorite example was Alabama. Alabama imposed these voter ID requirements and then said, but you can go to the motor vehicles department and get an ID even if you don't drive a car, like if you're elderly or whatever. Then, a few months later, they shut down all the motor vehicle department offices in the predominantly black counties of Alabama. So I was on my way to Alabama to speak to the Alabama Democrats, a feisty, although somewhat endangered species. And, you know, we had a huge crowd, about 800, 900 people. And I said, you know, I heard that your governor is saying that the only reason that those particular DMV offices were shut down was for budget reasons. And then I said to them, because, you know, I lived for 18 wonderful years in Arkansas, I said, this reminds me of a saying that I learned in Arkansas, which I think has profound philosophical meaning. If you find a turtle on a fence post, it did not get there by accident. So I want judges who know a little bit more about life and about the struggles that people have and about the inequality of power and opportunity that we are confronting, and that's what I'm going to look for. So, oh my goodness. Sorry. Okay, you had your hand up, and then I'll go over there. Okay, yeah, I'll go to you next, but this gentleman right here.